It is the engine of evolution and the spark of life. Yet it is the one thing we are taught to hide. Nature has no shame. Nature has no sin, and nature certainly has no rules. But humans do. Why? Is the sex taboo a cage for our desires, or is it the very foundation of civilization? To find the answer, we must peel back the layers of our mind, our soul, and our biological reality. Welcome to the Forbiddance analysis of the sex taboo. Sex taboos exist in almost every human society. While the specifics vary, the overarching silence and regulation of sexuality are nearly universal social phenomena. These unwritten rules dictate not just behavior, but what we are even permitted to speak about, creating a shroud of secrecy around a fundamental human experience. A sexual taboo isn't just a simple rule, it's a deeply ingrained societal prohibition, often surrounded by shame, fear, and disgust. Breaking it can lead to severe social, religious, or even legal consequences. These powerful prohibitions shape our behaviors, our identities, and the very structure of our communities, often in ways we don't fully realize. To understand sex taboos, we must peel back multiple layers. They are not monolithic. What is forbidden in one time or place may be celebrated in another. Their roots run deep into the fertile soil of our social structures, our religious beliefs, and our biological evolution, creating a complex web that is difficult to untangle. Historically, religious institutions have acted as the primary gatekeepers of sexual morality, defining what is permissible and what is taboo. While their influence has waned in some secular societies, their doctrines continue to shape the values, laws, and personal lives of vast populations globally. Social attitudes are not static. The mid-20th century sexual revolution in the West challenged rigid Victorian norms, bringing sexuality into the public discourse. Yet, this history reveals a constant push and pull between periods of liberation and renewed conservatism, showing that taboos evolve rather than disappear entirely. What is celebrated in one culture can be deeply shameful in another. Some societies view sexuality as a potent, sacred force connected to nature and fertility. Others see it as a dangerous, chaotic energy that must be strictly contained within marriage to maintain social order and family honor. We live in a media landscape saturated with sexual imagery, used to sell everything from cars to perfume. Yet frank, educational discussions about sexual health and pleasure are often censored or deemed inappropriate. This creates a confusing paradox where sex is everywhere as a commodity, but nowhere as a subject of honest conversation. Taboos are powerful tools of social control. By attaching shame to sexual desires and behaviors outside the norm, societies police individuals. This internalized shame can lead to anxiety, depression, and a fractured sense of self, forcing people to hide parts of their identity to avoid social rejection. Social taboos often weigh more heavily on women. Historically, patriarchal structures have controlled female sexuality to ensure lineage purity. This has created enduring double standards where male sexual experience is often praised, while similar behavior in women is stigmatized and punished. Challenging sex taboos is not about promoting chaos, but about fostering health and understanding. Open, honest conversations are essential for combating shame, reducing misinformation, and creating a society where sexual well-being is recognized as a fundamental human right. Religion has been a primary force in shaping sexual norms for millennia. Many faiths grapple with the tension between the spiritual and the physical, often framing sexuality as a powerful force that can either lead to divine connection or spiritual downfall, necessitating strict religious guidance. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam share roots that emphasize sexual purity and moral law. Traditionally, these faiths have promoted heteronormative marriage as the only legitimate context for sexual expression, viewing sex outside of this bond as sinful and a violation of divine commandment. In contrast, some Eastern traditions like Hinduism and Taoism have historically viewed sexual energy as a vital life force. While still regulated by social and spiritual codes, sexuality can be seen as a path to spiritual balance and even enlightenment, as seen in ancient texts like the Kama Sutra. For many religions, marriage is a sacred covenant that sanctifies sexual relations. Within this boundary, sex is often celebrated as a gift from God for procreation and mutual comfort. The taboo lies in violating this sacred bond through premarital or extramarital sex. By renouncing physical desires, clergy and monastics aim to devote themselves entirely to spiritual matters, viewing sexual abstinence as a path to purity and closeness to the divine. The concept of sexual sign is central to many religious taboos. Violating these moral codes can lead to profound feelings of guilt and spiritual anxiety. Religious frameworks often provide paths for repentance and redemption, offering a way to be cleansed of the stain of many religions enforce codes of modesty to guard against sexual temptation and preserve purity. These rules often focus on covering the body, particularly women's bodies. Religious views on sexuality are not monolithic or changing. Within many faith traditions, there are ongoing debates and evolving interpretations. Progressive branches are increasingly re-examining Scripture to embrace LGBTQ+ individuals and promote a more inclusive understanding of human sexuality. In modern, secular societies, religious sexual taboos often clash with mainstream culture. Believers can feel caught between the moral imperatives of their faith and the sexually permissive messages of the world around them, creating a source of internal and social conflict. Ultimately, religious perspectives on sex are about the search for a moral framework. They attempt to imbue a primal human drive with meaning, purpose, and ethical boundaries, reflecting humanity's enduring quest to align the physical body with spiritual aspirations. Science suggests some sexual taboos may have evolutionary roots related to the emotion of disgust. This primal response evolved to help us avoid pathogens and disease. Scientists theorize that this behavioral immune system may underlie taboos against certain sexual practices, historically linked to health risks. The near-universal incest taboo is often explained through biology. Inbreeding significantly increases the risk of offspring inheriting harmful genetic conditions. Evolutionary psychology proposes that a natural aversion to close-kin mating evolved as a protective mechanism to ensure genetic health. In the wild, taboo is a non-existent concept. Sexuality is purely functional, driven by the biological imperative to pass on genes. Nature does not judge, it only selects for what works. Behaviors that humans might find shocking or immoral are simply survival strategies, honed by millions of years of evolution to ensure the continuity of a species. Sexual selection often favors extravagance. The peacock's tail is heavy and makes him vulnerable to predators, yet it exists because females prefer it. This handicap principle signals to a mate, I am so genetically fit and healthy that I can survive even with this massive burden. It is a genetic advertisement where beauty equals biological strength. While we romanticize animal monogamy, true genetic monogamy is incredibly rare in nature. Even species that pair for life, like many birds, often engage in extra-pair copulations. From an evolutionary standpoint, this increases genetic diversity and ensures that a female's clutch isn't entirely dependent on the genetic fitness of a single male. The competition doesn't end after mating. In species where females mate with multiple males, sperm competition occurs inside the reproductive tract. Males evolve faster, stronger, or even kamikaze sperm to block rivals, while females evolve mechanisms to selectively choose which sperm fertilizes their eggs, giving them the final say in genetic selection. To prevent inbreeding, most species have built-in dispersal mechanisms. Typically, one sex, often males in mammals, females in birds, is driven to leave their birth group upon reaching maturity. This natal dispersal ensures that genes are mixed across different populations and physically prevents young adults from mating with their parents or siblings. Animals that stick together need a way to recognize family. Many species use the major histocompatibility complex, MHC, a set of genes controlling the immune system that also influences body odor. Animals often prefer mates with dissimilar MHC genes, different scents, which naturally steers them away from relatives and ensures their offspring have diverse, robust immune systems. Unlike animals whose avoidance of inbreeding is instinctual, early humans codified it into the incest taboo. Anthropologists argue this was the cornerstone of civilization. By forcing individuals to find mates outside their immediate kin, humans turned potential enemies into in-laws. This practice, known as exogamy, wove isolated family bands into vast networks of trade, alliance, and mutual defense, creating the very fabric of complex society. Civilization allows humans to defy biological imperatives for social gain, sometimes with disastrous results. European royalty frequently practiced inbreeding to keep power in the family, ignoring the biological warnings that animals heed instinctively. The resulting genetic defects, like the infamous Habsburg jaw and high infant mortality rates, demonstrate the catastrophic biological price of prioritizing political consolidation over genetic diversity. In the wild, genetic health is maintained by scent and dispersal. In human civilization, we replaced these silent biological triggers with loud cultural institutions, laws, religions, and morals. We outsourced our evolutionary survival strategies to our social structures. This shift allowed us to live in stable populations of millions, far beyond the size of any wolf pack. But it also means our sexual health relies on education and ethics rather than just instinct. The invention of reliable contraception was a watershed moment for civilization. It shattered the inevitable link between intercourse and procreation. For the first time in history, sex could be pursued purely for pleasure, bonding, or recreation without the life-altering consequence of offspring. This biological hack fundamentally altered social structures, liberating individuals to explore sexuality as a personal pursuit rather than just a reproductive duty. Once separated from reproduction, sex became a tradable asset in the capitalist marketplace. Desire is now a product to be manufactured and sold, whether through pornography, sex work, or the ubiquitous sex sells mantra of advertising. In this context, the human body can be reduced to a transactional object, where intimacy is mimicked and monetized, challenging traditional views on the sanctity and purpose of the sexual act. Psychologist Sigmund Freud argued that taboos are created to repress powerful, unconscious desires that threaten social order. He believed that the very act of forbidding something, like incest or aggression, is proof of a deep-seated, hidden impulse to engage in it. Psychological research supports the idea of a forbidden fruit effect. Making a behavior taboo can paradoxically increase its allure. The secrecy and risk associated with forbidden sexual acts can heighten arousal and desire, creating a complex cycle of prohibition and transgression. Science debates how much of sexual behavior is driven by biology versus social norms. While biological drivers like hormones and brain chemistry are undeniable, sexuality is excessively shaped by culture, suggesting that many taboos are social constructs rather than biological inevitabilities. From a public health perspective, sex taboos can be harmful. Silence and stigma create barriers to sexual health resources like contraception, STI testing, and honest education. This leads to higher rates of preventable diseases and unintended pregnancies, outcomes that science seeks to mitigate. Historically, science and medicine were used to pathologize non-normative sexual behaviors, labeling them as mental illnesses. The modern scientific community has largely moved away from this, focusing instead on consensual, healthy sexual functioning and removing the stigma from diverse sexual expressions. Neuroscience reveals that sex is a powerful biological driver for pleasure and bonding. Sexual activity releases neurochemicals like dopamine and oxytocin, which reinforce connection and intimacy. Understanding this biology helps explain the profound role sexuality plays in human relationships and well-being. A scientific perspective ultimately advocates for knowledge over silence. By understanding the biological, psychological, and social underpinnings of sexuality, we can move past fear-based taboos and make informed, healthy decisions, empowering individuals and communities. We are creatures caught in the middle, strung tight, between the raw instincts of the animal kingdom and the moral laws of human society. We've seen that taboos aren't just arbitrary rules. They are the walls that built civilization. But in a modern world, do we still need them? That is the question we leave with you. If this deep dive sparked a new perspective, subscribe to Mind, Soul, Reality. We are here to ask the questions that others only whisper. Until next time, seek the truth behind the silence.